The other week, I was pulling background footage for a video I was making on billionaire venture capitalist opposite of the Antichrist guy, Peter Thiel. And by pure accident, I found this disturbing exchange during his chat with Jordan Peterson. Thiel drops the following non sequitur during one of his many rambling non-answers.
You can ask, why did the witchcraft trials come to an end? And the atheist scientific explanation is, we got science to prove that witchcraft is impossible. And I don't think that's even been proven in 2025 because we don't know everything. Maybe it's a lost art that's been lost.
Thiel acknowledges that the modern perception, the way it's been reconstructed, is that the people of Salem had simply lost their minds, but he wistfully says that at the time, there were competing sermons on Sundays. One side of the Christian divide said that the women had made a pact with the devil.
And the alternate one was, no, the devil had entered the whole community and had possessed all of Salem.
Thiel never does say which one he would have attended. Now, there are like 12 things from this 30-second clip I could talk about for an hour, but let me first say, no, atheists do not reject witchcraft because the Salem witch trials proved witchcraft isn't real. I'm pretty sure that's a brand new sentence. I don't know a single person who has ever uttered that opinion, and if they did, I would tell them they were wrong. The witch trials were not a debate about the veracity of magic spells between Christians and atheists. It was an excuse to subjugate women. Thiel knows this, of course. What struck me here is the clarity with which Thiel speaks about this of all issues, witchcraft. Thiel is so often non-committal in his speech, but when talking to Jordan Peterson, he says he believes witchcraft may very well be a real thing, that he's not convinced it's a superstition, that perhaps it's a lost art form, perhaps, thinks one of the most influential humans in America, witches still live among us right now. But the main reason this struck me as significant is because this was the fourth time in as many months I've heard a powerful conservative express their belief in witchcraft, and more than witchcraft, the necessity of the witch trials.
The leaders of the witch hunt are witches. Sound impossible? Listen to this.
1. Samuel Alito. In Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito's early draft of the Dobbs versus the Women's Health Organization decision, which overturned Roe v. Wade, a 50-year federal protection for abortion access, Alito cited, quote, a 17th century infamous witch trial judge who insisted women cannot be raped by their husbands.
Samuel Alito is quoting approvingly the 1644 judgment on abortion of an English aristocrat who said a witch is a person who has conference with the devil.
This was not a passing reference. Alito cited 17th century jurist Lord Matthew Hale 8 times. Lord Hale's most enduring legal arguments were against abortion, and 4 coverture laws, the idea that a married woman is her husband's property, and thus rape within marriage was not possible.
For by their mutual matrimonial consent and contract, the wife hath given herself up in this kind unto the husband which she cannot retract.
Gross. But it gets even grosser, because in those days, women who were raped by their husbands, or accidentally smiled at the wrong person, or did things that the husband found annoying or inconvenient, would sometimes be accused of being witches, and thus would be forced to plead their innocence before Lord Matthew Hale. Sure enough, Hale sentenced at least 2 women, Amy Dooney and Rose Cullender, to be executed. Now your Peter Thiels and your Samuel Alitos would say I'm being uncharitable. They would say the poor Matthew Hales of the world were simply concerned about the very real threat of occult rituals and devil worship turning housewives into rape fakers. Peter Thiel, like Samuel Alito, believes in the Holy Scriptures. And this is just a minor thing, unless it's not. Peter Thiel doesn't like the word rational.
I would always interpret the Orthodox Christian message as very anti-sacrificial, very non-sacrificial. And, maybe, I don't like the word rational, but...
So to all you haters calling Peter Thiel irrational, well, he doesn't even believe in that word. Now, it must needs be remarked at this point that some of my viewers, more secularly minded viewers, might be tempted to argue that witchcraft is not actually real. But had you been on the jury in 1662, you would have been reminded by the judge, Matthew Hale, that the existence of witchcraft is not up for debate. Witchcraft is in the Bible, so it must be real. For the Bible tells me so is not typically accepted in 21st century legal opinions, so why would a modern-day judge cite a man like Hale 8 times to establish precedent in the Supreme Court case that ultimately ended federal abortion protections in the United States? I didn't know the answer to that for a long time. I first heard about Alito's Hale obsession in an episode of Strict Scrutiny like 3 years ago, and the brazen creepiness of it stuck in my head, so I pulled all that information about it for another video I was already working on.
Speaking of subtlety, Justice Alito's draft heavily references English legal precedent, including that of famed jurist Sir Matthew Hale, who, it should be noted, sentenced at least 2 women to death for witchcraft and also wrote a treatise supporting marital rape.
Just wait, witchcraft is going to be in there any day. We can restrict abortion because they're witches.
Why, I kept wondering, other than to be intentionally provocative and cruel, would any legal expert, let alone a Supreme Court justice, cite the expertise of a man who executed women based on magical superstition? That is to say, why would a 21st century legal scholar do that? And so I figured Alito was just trolling. And now I think he was trolling, but not just. Right-wing populism and its aesthetics have had a massive influence on Alito's arguments, decisions, and flag choices. He's a member of a fringe dynastic Christian order where he was recently knighted. More on that in future projects. He is a proud, loud Christian nationalist. Christian nationalists believe witchcraft is real because the Bible says so. 2. Megyn Kelly.
First, I have a sort of out of left field story to bring to you, and then I want to start with it. I've been wrestling with whether to bring you this story for a few days now. I've been wrestling because I find it so vile and off and odd. I wasn't even sure where to go with it. But I decided that I had to do it because
the groups who did this deserve public censure.
Megyn Kelly, formerly of Fox News, currently of radio, took to her eponymous SiriusXM show recently to talk about the very real danger of witches and demons.
You're playing with fire, messing with this stuff. There actually are demons in this world. Calling up the spirit world, in particular the devil's spirit world, can actually have real-world consequences. It's not something to mess with.
She was disturbed by a tongue-in-cheek article posted by Jezebel.com, wherein the author claimed to have paid some witches to curse conservative propagandist Charlie Kirk. By terrible coincidence, 2 days later, Kirk was assassinated. And you know a domain name like Jezebel has to upset a God-fearing woman like Megyn Kelly, who knows her good book backwards and front.
Now, again, you may be saying to yourself, why are we talking about Etsy curses? None of this is real. Well, 2 things. First of all,
Christians are opposed to casting spells or trying to contact the spirit world. Not only because they believe there's only one God, but because they acknowledge the existence of the devil and evil spirits.
Who would do such a vile thing, Kelly asked. Jezebel, that's who, and, unbelievably, Etsy, and the people behind this evil should be called out. Now let's assume for a moment that Megyn Kelly has a heart. Does she believe this stuff in her heart? I don't know. Kelly's full-time job is being full of shit, but Erica Kirk is a true believer, it seems to me. She was married to the late Charlie Kirk, and Charlie Kirk even said that she was to the right of him. On her show, Kelly claimed Erica Kirk was genuinely rattled by this Jezebel report, and in all sincerity, I believe that's a perfectly understandable emotional response from Erica Kirk. If someone jokingly posted that they had hired witches to curse my wife, and then my wife was shot a couple days later, I would be genuinely rattled too. This isn't a video about Charlie Kirk, okay? So let's just not. This is a video about extremely wealthy, high-ranking MAGA influencers. Yep, sorry Samuel Alito, you're just an influencer who wears a robe, who apparently believe that witchcraft and thus witches are real and live among us because it's Bible.
It's Bible.
And if witches are real, says MAGA, they must be burned alive. Some are more literal about this than others.
It's not enough to say we're against you gotta be against women's rights too. It's not enough to be against blue-haired feminism, you gotta be against women getting educated. Okay? Or else, what are we really trying to achieve here? 1999? 1999 sucked too. We want to go back to 1099. We want to go back to the Middle Ages.
3. Nick Fuentes. But I'm going to talk about some other stuff first before I get to Nick Fuentes. In the 17th century, many people did not believe in witchcraft. But that didn't matter, because the people in power did. They were willing to use the Bible for its claim to fame. Detailed instructions on who deserves to die and how to kill them. Every accusation is a confession. And what's every maggot's favorite accusation? This is a witch hunt.
This is the single greatest witch hunt.
The president calls it all, quote, a witch hunt.
Reads and smells like a witch hunt.
The entire thing has been a witch hunt.
These witch hunts that happened in pre-fascist 21st century America were bloodless. Supposedly, there was a whole witch trial for J.K. Rowling of all people, but she's doing a lot better than Amy Dooney and Rose Cullender. They never even got to live in one castle one time, and also they were murdered by the state for vague, unprovable accusations based on magic. And J.K. Rowling, who is a billionaire, was yelled at on Twitter for posting nonstop about trans people for like 6 consecutive years. Trump's witch hunt resulted in him being the president twice and avoiding all consequences for his felony charges. So first off, the left is evidently very bad at witch hunts. We're very good at yelling at people on Twitter. Yes, for sure. But not so much creating violent systems of execution based on biblical crimes. That would be the right's ballywick. I just wanted to say ballywick. And on the left, I'll just be real with you. We do legit have some witches. but they're cool and chill, I promise. I have resting sarcasm voice. I did mean that. I think witches are cool. I'll say it. I'll go on the record. Even though I am one of them atheists. It's true, a spiritual, not religious kind of witchcraft trend has gained some prominence in the last few years. And Wicca, those guys. Grimoires and altars and tarot cards are pretty popular, especially with women, and there are definitely some warlocks out there, but we don't call them the Salem Warlock Trials. I want to be clear that I don't have any beef with the witches in my audience. Witchcraft is a vibe, aesthetically. The cards are cool, the clothes are cool. You get to add a lot more curtains and smoke machines to your daily life. You have nice recipe books that are basically just cookbooks, but with lore. But there are a lot of stupid idiots out there who believe that not only is magic real, it is evil. What a weird world to live in, by the way.
The world is full of magic, little Timmy, and that magic must be destroyed before the second coming of Christ.
What I find worrying is not so much that the Trump administration will bring back literal witch trials, although why wouldn't that be on the table? It's the way that superstitions, delusions, and magical thinking have infested the highest rungs of our society. Again, the most powerful people believe the dumbest, most violent things, and the one thing they hate more than made-up bullshit is evidence that their beliefs are made-up bullshit. SCOTUS already overturned Roe v. Wade and have been making gestures toward a national abortion ban, with MAGA pushing to overturn no-fault divorce and legislation that threatens women's suffrage. We are ruled by royal fetishists who long for the days when biblical accusations carried weight in court. Thiel, one of the right-wing Supreme Court justices' biggest investors, is also one of the biggest investors in the social media platform Rumble. Rumble's biggest star is proud neo-Nazi Nick Fuentes. I actually didn't check that. He's the biggest star in my opinion. And I'm talking about Little Nicky because this guy's literally the devil. He believes that we need to bring the witch trials back for real.
So we're burning your gay pride flag. We're burning your gay pride float. And then we're going to drag your bitch wife out of her house kicking and screaming. And then we're going to burn her at the stake too for being a witch.
Now, I can't prove this, but that Little Nicky joke, that was off the top of my head. Obviously, this is scripted, but I had a little idea for a Little Nicky joke. And if you think that was good, you should consider being a patron because they got to read the script for this early. And if you thought it was bad, you should also do that because you can read the script without that stupid joke in it.
We need to go back to burning women alive more. Like when they're convicted of crimes, obviously, not random acts of violence. But remember that in medieval times, I've said this on the show before, when women were witches, what happened to them? They were burned alive. Real phenomenon. And we stopped doing that, and then everything went out of control. You know, we said, oh, that was such a horrible tragedy. We really need to stop burning these women alive for casting spells. And then guess what happened? They started casting their spells again. They started speaking in devilish tongues and casting spells. And now we've got a totally fucked up society where the women are molesting your kids in primary schools. And women are accusing you of rape, or they're raping you in some cases, or they're killing you. And is Amber Heard one of these people who would not be sentenced to death for being a witch in medieval times? I mean, she probably would be. Would the world not be better if these sort of spell-casting witches received something more than promotion at work? I don't know. I'm just saying things seem to work out a little bit better when the witch question was answered. The WQ, not the woman question, the witch question.
A lot of things we could say about that. Fuentes, like Samuel Alito and Matthew Hale, seems to suggest here that falsely accusing a man of rape is a more serious crime than rape itself. Thiel famously used similar logic when talking about accusations of racism. But Fuentes is more explicit than his mainstream counterparts are allowed to be. He openly says society should return to burning women alive. Now again, I don't know that there will be any attempt to mandate modern-day witch trials. I do wonder, though, hypothetically, what might happen if a local church community decided to hold a witch trial of their own. What might happen if they decide a woman is being influenced by demons, so they burn her alive in the church basement? What happens if the victim's family sues the church, and the case makes it to the Supreme Court, generating countless think pieces by the right-wing religious intelligentsia? How would the most powerful people in the United States respond? I hate to end on a question, but that is the end of that. Although, I do have two important things. Don't touch that dial. Just hang on a second. I always like to do bonus material during the credits, and I can do that thanks to this month's sponsor, Queen of Flatulence. Do you want to be one of my patrons and have a funny name that you get me to say out loud, or just a normal name? Do you want to be famous and cool and be helping somebody who could use your hard-earned cash? Be like Queen of Flatulence. Support altworldlyindustries.com LLC businesses industries. And what I will leave you with is my wife's reaction to this script, which I read for her because, yes, I make her listen to my little projects like a kid making macaroni necklaces. and that is how I refer to them. I'm like, hey, I got a macaroni necklace situation. She agreed with the larger suggestion that these right-wing figures seem to want to return to a colonial pre-revolution America, that they pined for a time when the Bible and science were interchangeable. And she made an amazing observation, which is that if they're doing that, RFK Jr. is their alchemist. He's their local medicine man. He's the guy who believes in the 4 humors and puts leeches on you and does the smoke. I don't know what you call the smoke, but I've been thinking so much recently about a show that I gotta be honest with you, I never think about at all, which is Disenchantment. There's this joke in it that I have thought about so much recently. The king thinks that his daughter is possessed by a demon, and so they're going to have to use the best science available.
Wait, you know about the demon?
Of course. With my scientific training, it was rather obvious.
Meow, guys. What up?
Ah, your talking cat's here to keep you company.
None of it works, of course, and so he has to lament this to the king.
Alas, the demon remains even after the application of all 3 sciences.
All 3? Even smoke?
It's sort of like that we've tried nothing and we're all out of ideas when you're RFK Jr. RFK Jr. is like, we've tried everything, including smoke. I don't know if that made sense. Disenchantment, you needed more editing. You needed to keep it to less than half an hour, which is what I'm going to do with this video for comedic timing reasons. That's what this video has really been about, is my unresolved issues with that show. It was never about anything else, and I'm upset if you thought it was. This was never about anything other than disenchantment, and anybody, any future ICE agents or national security guards or whoever pulls you aside at the border, I just need you to know that this whole thing was a joke, and it was only ever about one joke and disenchantment. I'm sorry you didn't get the joke. I guess it just wasn't your sense of humor, but I didn't say anything legally binding, and comedy is legal again, and I'm not a witch. I'm not even a warlock, even though I do own a lot of grimoires for research purposes.
They underscored that the piece was meant to be humorous, intended as satire, and that they made clear they wished Charlie, quote, no physical harm.
Which is not the full story now, is it?